Hi everyone, it's David from LendPower here. Welcome to another episode of Invest Power series today. So what I'd like to talk about today is over the years I have been looking at so many properties online, and I thought one of the problems that I've been asked a lot is how can I quickly identify the properties that are relevant as an investment property. So I guess when I was looking for these properties, I already had specific goals in mind in terms of what the property wants to do for me. So I thought today I'd like to share a little bit about my secrets or my tips about how to go about identifying these properties and be able to filter them out relatively quickly from the realestate.com.au or domain website, so that you don't have to look into each and spend a lot of time on it. In the past, I might spend an hour a day, but over the time as I get better and better and get more comfortable, nowadays, when I look at a property, based on the criteria, I can actually relatively quickly filter them out to say, yes, this is something I'll be looking into, or no, not really. Okay, so I'll share that today. Okay, so there are basically four key ingredients that we'll be looking at today. Number one is yield, so the gross rental return of a property. In other words, how much cash flow is it generating for you? Number two is the location, in terms of where the property is located and how good it is, close to amenities and transports and all that. Number three is value add. What sort of things can you do to the property in order to create and manufacture that equity? And number four is development or subdivision potential. Okay, so these are the four key ingredients. Now let's have a look at number one. Yield is important because in today's world, especially with a low interest rate at the moment, it will only likely to go up from this point in time. So you do want to have a couple properties in your portfolio that is geared to be a yield play. Okay, so what I call as a yield play is ones that return you a very good cash flow. Somewhere between like the 6 to 6.5% gross rental return will be the type of properties that I want to be able to target to get into my portfolio. Okay, so these are the properties that's not going to take you too much money to hold. In the long term, if you've got a couple of negative geared property, in other words, it's costing you money to hold, then in the long term, that these cash flow positive property is going to actually neutralize your cash flow for you. So if you think of it like having two positively geared property that gives you, say for example, $200 a week is going to offset the one property where it might be closer to metropolitan area, capital city, and it's basically $200 negative every week in the cash flow. So if you think of it like the two that's positive offsetting one that's negative, that cancels out. So over time, these yield properties is going to be even more important for you. Okay, so don't underestimate them. Okay, number two, location. So in what aspects of location should you be looking for? Well, think of it this way. Let's assume that today you are the renter yourself. And you want to be able to, rent a property, then, wouldn't you want to be able to live close to, for example, public transport, close to shopping centres like Westfield, and close to good schools, so that your kids it'll be easy for the kids to be able to walk to a good school himself or herself. So these are the key importance that I'll be looking at when I was basically judging from a location perspective. I would essentially look at it like, okay, well, is it close to good school? Is it close to Westfield? And is it close to public transport? And when I say close, I usually look at within about 1 kilometer max walking distance. Okay, so I try to avoid car. In this case, and that's why my definition of close proximity is within 1 kilometer, so about 15 minutes walk maximum. Okay, so that's another indicator that you can use to be able to determine the location of the property. And one of the important things is location cannot be changed. Whereas, for example, the yield can be changed because over time the rent may go up, the value add can be changed, and definitely development and subdivision potential could be changed over time. So this is definitely one of the most important criteria you got to think through, and you got to make sure that you buy in a really good location. And that's why in property world they keep saying location, location, location. Okay. Okay, moving on. Number 3, value add potential. What do I mean by value add potential here? Okay, well, value add potential is essentially something that you can spend money or your own effort to be able to generate equity or boost up cash flow. Okay, so that's my definition of value add potential. Now, what sort of things can you do? You can do, for example, a renovation on the kitchen. If the kitchen is really old, you could also renovate the bathroom so that the bathroom is a lot newer and shinier. Things like, for example, painting exterior and interior of the house, which will give the house a new look. Or even things as simple as just replacing the carpet or replace it with a wooden floor. These are the simple things that you don't have to spend a lot of money, but will be able to, one, potentially increase the value of the property, because now if you renovate the property, then you are essentially comparing it, when it's being valued, it will be compared to similar conditions. Okay, so similar condition properties are selling for, say, for example, $400,000. You bought something for $300,000 and you spent 30 grand on it. That means your cost base may be only around 330, but when it got estimated or when it got valued, it's going to get compared against the $400,000 ranges. So as you could see, that's how you can actually generate or manufacture equity by using, these type of renovations, and be able to spot the value add potential is crucial here. Okay. So that's one way. The other way is, for example, Southeast Queensland, you've got high sets, downstairs may not necessarily be built out, it might be just an empty canvas. You could potentially build it out as a living space, and then you can determine, and you can decide to rent it out as one big house, because downstairs may not be legal height. Okay, so that's another way of being able to generate equity as well as yield. Now, the third one could be, for example, adding a granny flat. Adding a granny flat will essentially boost up your yield, but when you're doing your due diligence, you just need to make sure there's enough side access, so that later on, the work trucks can actually go in there, and also engage the specialists in that area as part of your due diligence before going ahead with the deal. Okay.